There's an epidemic infecting gardens all over the world, and I think this epidemic may have started on YouTube. Gardeners all over the world are going through the time and expense to build these beautiful raised bed gardens, and then they are destroying them in an instant by filling their raised garden beds with potting mix. Raised garden beds are not containers, and filling them with a mix designed for container gardening will come back to haunt you. And on today's video, I'm going to explain to you why.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
As you can see, I have an extensive container garden that I have built over the years. I make my own potting mix to save me money, and I fill my containers with a very standard recipe: 50% peat moss or cocoa coir, 25% perlite, and 25% compost. This works well in containers, but this mix will be the downfall of your raised bed garden. Yet, all over the internet, I am seeing videos and I'm reading comments suggesting gardeners fill their raised beds with peat moss, cocoa coir, perlite, and compost just like you would in a container garden. This is going to look like a very good decision at first. You will start out with a nice, light, loamy mix that will retain moisture and produce beautiful results. But this mix will actually degrade over time, like all container mixes eventually do. You want your garden soil to improve over time because it is a permanent fixture in your garden, not decay with age and get worse. Here is why this happens. A good quality potting mix has either peat moss or cocoa coir as its primary ingredient. That's because it is a natural organic medium that retains even moisture and holds onto nutrients. Because our plants are confined to tiny vessels and the roots can't scour the entire earth to search for moisture and nutrition, it is critical we prioritize a medium that controls moisture and holds those nutrients so our pots don't dry out too quickly in the summer when it's really hot, or drain away too easily during rainfall and flush out all of those expensive fertilizers that you added. The downside to potting mix is that it is almost entirely organic matter. Except for the perlite component, everything eventually rots and decays. The compost, the peat moss, and the cocoa coir, they start out as being nice and light and loamy, but because everything is organic, it slowly breaks down. After several years, what was a nice, light, loamy, well-aerated mix turns into a heavy, dense, compressed silt with poor aeration. If you let your mix get too old, it can actually suffocate the roots of your plants. Potting mix actually goes sour over time. Now, the way we fix this is that every 3 to 5 years, we pull our plants out of their containers, we root prune them, we shake off the old silty mix, and we repot them with fresh potting mix. Container gardens allow us to do that, but our raised bed gardens don't. If you're filling your raised bed gardens with a potting mix, it will start out beautiful, but over time it will slowly degrade into a heavy, poorly aerated silt because it's almost entirely organic matter. Now, many of you may be saying, hey, nice try, Mr. Know-It-All, but I filled my raised garden beds like this, and I don't have any problems. Well, that's because it's going to take 5 to 10 years for the mix to decay to that heavy, mucky silt that is going to cause you problems. The craze of filling raised garden beds with potting mix seems to be a fairly new thing that has taken over recent years, so most people probably haven't realized their mistake just yet. Also, keep in mind that filling your raised beds with peat or coir-based mixes will probably cost 3 to 4 times the amount of a proper raised bed garden soil mix. So, how should you fill your raised beds? Proper raised bed garden soil will have a significant inorganic component. What are inorganic components? Well, typically things like clay or sand. We call these things commonly dirt. You need a dirt component in your raised garden bed soil. Why? Because it will never break down. It's inorganic and it isn't prone to biological decay. You can't refresh your raised beds like you can a container garden. You'd have to manually remove and replace the soil inside, like dig it out with a shovel and then replace it one scoop for one scoop. Imagine all that work you'd be putting into things. So you need something that is going to provide drainage and aeration to your garden that will exist basically for eternity. And the best component for most of us is probably going to be sand. Sand provides permanent drainage and aeration to your raised beds. Now, sand is not typically a component that you want to add to your container garden in large quantities because your containers will then dry out and drain too quickly. But in your raised garden beds, because you're dealing with such a large soil mass, and we also often deeply mulch our raised garden beds, they are a lot less prone to drying out. So instead of filling your raised garden beds with potting mix, you should actually be filling them with a blend of compost and topsoil with a substantial sand component. Look, I know there is a difference between biogenic sand, meaning it originated from an organic source like crushed seashells, and abiogenic sand, which originated from an inorganic source like crushed rock. The point of the sand component is that it won't be consumed by the soil microbiology and your mix will not degrade over time. That is the purpose of the sand component. Last year, I showed you how to cheaply fill raised garden beds. My basic recipe was 50% topsoil and 50% compost. True topsoil contains significant amounts of sand, so the blend naturally has an inorganic sand component that will provide lifelong drainage and aeration that will never sour or decay while still providing plenty of organic matter to keep your plants happy. I'll link to that video both above and down in the video description if you want to see that video. And the best part is, this mix will cost a tiny fraction of these crazy potting mix blends that require lots of peat moss and coco coir, which you practically have to take out a second mortgage on your house to afford these days. You will spend way less money up front, and instead of the mixture compressing into silt as it ages, it will get better over time as you incorporate more and more compost and mulch into your soil, because that sand component never goes away. It provides permanent drainage and aeration, unlike the peat and coir, which will turn into a gross, nasty, swampy muck over time. So if all you're doing is filling 1 or 2 raised beds, the easiest way to do this is to go to the store and get yourself some bags of compost and topsoil that have a real sand component in it to make sure that your garden soil maintains good drainage and aeration over time. However, if you have a lot of garden beds to fill, the best way to do this by far is to call a local landscape supply company or a local mulch yard. Most of them will sell a homemade mix already put together for raised beds, and ask them what's in it. Most of the time, it is a natural blend of compost and topsoil that they mix on premises with a backhoe, which shaves off the top layer of sand from the ground, naturally incorporating it into the mix. Call and get a price, and if the price is right, have a big dump truck load delivered. You'll pay a small fraction of what the price of bagged mixes are at the store, and then you just take your wheelbarrow and then you fill your raised beds with it. This is exactly what I did years ago. All of my garden soil was delivered from a local company called Hoffman Eco Works in Brunswick County, North Carolina. And because the mix naturally had plenty of sand in it, it has only gotten better over time with no souring, degradation, or compaction. Let's check it out. Recently, I cleared out this entire area of my raised bed garden because I am expanding my garden and I'm making my existing beds deeper. So I actually picked up the garden beds that were in this area and I double stacked them one on top of the other. And then after I double stacked them, I scraped up the existing soil and I dumped it on top of the raised garden bed. So this is actually interesting because I heavily mulch my beds. Most of the organic matter is on top, where the natural sand in the mix is on the bottom. But because I relocated the garden soil, that actually has the sand component on top. So we have a unique ability here to see the natural sand component in this mix. So this garden soil has been exposed to the elements for a little bit over a month, and as you can see from the weathering effects of the rain and the snow, it's actually kind of brought a lot of the sand to the top. Plus, since I basically inverted my raised garden beds, the sand is mostly on the top with the organic matter on the bottom. So as I dig, you're more than likely going to see that soil transform darker and darker as I tap into that organic matter layer. And look, that is exactly what you're seeing. So the sand may have come up to the top for now because nothing's growing in it, but as I reach deeper and deeper in there, you get that nice, beautiful loam. That is that natural blend of topsoil and compost. So it has all of the nutrients you'd get in compost with all of the loaminess and drainage that you'd get from sand. So this mix is never going to go bad on me because of that inorganic component. It is going to stay light and loamy and well draining as long as I keep amending it with compost and mulch every single year. This is what my raised garden beds typically look like throughout the year as there are plants growing in them. You can see that they are well protected with a nice thick layer of mulch. That not only protects the plants from drying out and prevents weeds, but it also protects the biological activity of the soil itself. So if I were to dig down in there, I would have a nice thick organic matter layer. The compost layer that I always amend my beds with are underneath the mulch layer. So here is a raised garden bed that I haven't inverted that I'm going to start prepping to plant in soon. And you'll see the organic matter layer in this bed is actually on top where it belongs. So as I dig down into here, you'll see, again, more and more organic matter. And you'll see, wow, this soil is really black and rich because I don't have that sand component sitting right on top because I didn't just recently upend the whole bed. Instead, it is evenly distributed, and that is what you get when you don't disturb your garden soil. You try and practice no-till where you disrupt it as little as possible. You'll get that really nice, dark, loamy, well-draining good stuff, and it'll cost you a fraction of the money of something that involves peat moss and coco coir. So what do you do if you've already filled your raised beds with a potting mix? Is it too late for them? Is there any way to save them? Well, yes, I think you can save them by slowly working an inorganic medium into the mix over time. So for example, at the start of every growing season or any time I turn my beds over, I like to add a few bags of a cow manure-based compost and basically place that on top, not really working it in, but allowing it to sit into the soil to re-nutrify that soil. Well, what you can do over time is you can go get yourself some sand, like some of these bags of play sand, and you can take the bags of play sand and you can work that into your soil over time, or you could also work some topsoil with a sand component into your beds over time. Now the downside is you probably will need to disturb your raised bed soil. You will have to work it in with some shovels, which is not the best thing to do, but you may not have a choice. However, over time, you should be able to correct that deficiency, and that will basically prevent your mix from pancaking and turning into a heavy, dense silt over time. Or if it's your dream to start a container garden, well, you can just go into the raised garden beds themselves and harvest that soil mix that you made and put them inside of your containers because, hey, you made a container garden mix anyway. Then just refill your beds with some kind of topsoil / compost mix that you get from a local landscape supply company or mulch yard. That is another thing you could do. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. If you have any questions about the concepts discussed in this video, please ask them down in the comments section. I will do my best to address them. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden, I have them all linked down below in my Amazon storefront in the video description. So expand the video description, click on the Amazon storefront link, and you'll see all the products I use in real life in my garden. While you're down there, please check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Dale is stalking me the whole time I'm filming, so that means he wants to play and get his toy. All right, Dale. Wait. Oh, you gotta wait, Mr. Angry. Wait. Okay. Oh, he wants to play tug. Oh, okay, Dale, can you drop it? Oh, ow! Can you drop it? I want to... Dale, drop. Dale, I said drop. Good boy. Now, ready, mister? Go, Dale! Oh, wow, he almost got that. Oh, there he goes. He's got energy to burn. It's a nice 60-something degree day, which is the perfect temperature if you have a Dale coat. All right, let's see Dale do a catch. Oh, that was amazing, Dale! What a catch! He's so athletic. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. Give me that toy. Oh, there he goes. Get it, get it, get it. Go, Dale, go. This is how we burn off our energy at the end of the day.